The social media, news, and entertainment platform Puberty says that the American dream costs $4.4 million. And when I read that, I damn near passed out. $4.4 million. Like, that's so much money, probably more than most people make in a lifetime. But the more I thought about it, I began to realize, wait a minute, maybe I could achieve this American dream after all. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I would approach achieving the American dream as a freelancer without a salary for way less than $4.4 million. If you're new to the channel, my name is Hassiem. I'm an award-winning actor. I've been on TV, I've performed on stages around the country, and though I'm not rich or famous yet, I am a working actor who supports themselves as a freelancer. Okay, now let's get into this Puberty post. Puberty says the American dream now costs $4.4 million. They describe the American dream as retirement, owning a new car, wedding, raising 2 kids and their 4-year colleges, owning a home, pets, annual vacation, funeral. As you can see, some of these figures are ridiculous. How is the average American supposed to afford this? Let alone the average gig worker or freelancer who doesn't have a regular salary, who doesn't get to clock in and clock out, and so long as they show up and do the bare minimum, they receive money. Oh no, we got to go out and hustle for what we got. How are we going out and hustling for 4.4 mil? Listen, remember during the pandemic when everything shut down and people were out of work, and there was a discovery that the average American could not come up with $400 in the case of an emergency. How are we expected to have $4.4 million just to achieve the American dream, which at one point in our history, in our country's history, was just the norm? Now, Puberty has more here than I might consider the American dream, which we'll get into in a little bit. But, I was doing a little research, and it seems like most people agree that the American dream is a house, a spouse, 2 kids, and a car. That's kind of like tie it up in a bow. That's what it means to be an American who's doing well. Well, there's a few reasons why this is really tough for the average American and the average gig worker. One, the big one, inflation. I'm sure you've heard that term floating around and being thrown around recently. Look, this is why inflation is so tough. Over the last year or so, people are like, oh, inflation's down. It's only a couple percent, blah, blah, blah. We got to go back a couple more years though. Since then to now, inflation is up about 20%. That's crazy. Like, imagine if you got a 20% raise at your job. That doesn't happen, right? A 20% raise, that doesn't happen. And yet our goods and services have gone up by 20% just in the last few years. How are we expected to keep up with that when we know that our wages are not going to increase at the same rate? That's the first thing in our way. Second, housing costs have gone up, right? The pandemic caused shortages with certain goods. Wood, the cost of wood flew up because we couldn't get it. We couldn't transport it because the ships weren't going. Cars, even used cars, the price of used cars has gone up. It's settling back down now, which is good. But new cars, astronomically expensive still. Also, we got to talk about lifestyle, right? I'll take myself as an example. I'm a gig worker. I'm a freelancer. I have a lot of friends who still are unmarried by choice, but when you dig into a little bit, a lot of folks say it's because they just don't think they can afford it. They're not in a place where they can afford to get married. As Puberty says, a marriage is going to cost you $44,000. Who has that? And if you don't have rich parents willing to pay for you, that's coming out of your pocket. I've also met a lot of older freelancers who never got married and who to this day regret it. And that's the rub, right? It's one thing to say, oh, I can't afford it, so I won't do it. It's another thing to say, I can't afford it, but I want it and I can't have it. This is not an easy time to be making it in this economy. And to put the cherry on top of all of the hardship that's facing us, if you're a performer in the entertainment industry, specifically TV and film, we just had a strike a year ago. And the strike has created a lull, a shortage of opportunity, a shortage of jobs. 100%. It has. The strike has caused a shortage of jobs. Now, whether you're a big proponent of the strike or not, the reality we have to face is that the big producing heads up top have determined that they don't need to create as much content anymore, which means that's less work for us. So we're facing all of this. And then you get a post from Puberty as soon as you log into Instagram that says, oh, and by the way, for you to have all of the just bare necessities to enjoy life, you're going to need 4.4 mil. And so the more I dug, the more I realized I don't have to. What I discovered is that puberty's meme is off, totally off base, in fact. And to achieve the American dream does not cost $4.4 million. And I'm gonna break down a few reasons why. Let's start with this is the easiest one. Retirement, $1.6 million. Retirement is not an expense. It's your money. Saving for and investing for retirement is not the same as like buying a car, which is purely a liability, right? Or even a house, which houses can be assets or liabilities. Most people like to count them as assets, but let's say it's a liability to drop a couple $100,000 on a house. That's not the same as saving for and investing for retirement. So I think that 1.6 mil, we just take that off the top, gone. It's not a part of the equation. And I'm going to make sure that I only speak to the elements of this whole setup that I can directly relate to. So I do have a retirement account, right? I do own a car. I'm not going to speak to the things that I don't know about, like raising 2 kids and having a 4-year college degree. Back to the car. $811,000. Who says you need a new car? And by new, I mean like fresh, new, 0 miles driven new. No financial expert will recommend that you buy a new car. Why? Cars are depreciating assets. Sorry, depreciating liabilities. They're not assets. The moment you drive that car off the lot, it goes down in value. And on top of that, we've got interest rates, right? And interest rates can be as high as 25, 26%. So you could end up buying a new vehicle for X amount of dollars and then paying over twice as much over time due to the interest, not to mention maintenance, gas, and all the other things. Now, I'll take me as an example. I own a car and I bought it in cash for $5,500. It's my first time saying this publicly, but I got to drive home this point. I bought my car for less than $6,000 used from someone I met, someone who I could trust, someone who had all the paperwork on the car, who kept it in great condition. Okay. Now I've got a Honda CRZ, low maintenance, and even the maintenance I have to get does not cost that much. So let's run some numbers real quick. The average Honda's maintenance costs per year is $358. Not much. Okay, cool. Now let's say, okay, guys, like that's low. I'll give it to you. Let's add 1,000. Let's say $1,358 per year is the cost to maintain a Honda. Now, let's say you spend about $50 a month on gas. Okay, so now we got to add 50, we got to add $600 to that. So that brings us to just under $2,000. Oh, oil changes. So I'll add an additional $100 per quarter. So we'll say $2,400 to have a Honda, just as an example. Let's say I started when I was 25. I'm going to retire at 65 because 40 is a nice square number. Multiply that by 40. It's $96,000. Okay, but you're going to say you're not going to have one car for 40 years. Cool. I'll take my Honda, bought it for 55. Okay, I'll round down for the sake, $5,000, right? Bought it in cash. Also, that's another important thing. Bought it in cash for $5K. All right. So let's say you had to buy 4 of those. That's $20K. Oh, but Hassiem, you just said the price of cars went up. Great, let's double it. $40,000 to buy 4 used Hondas over the course of your adult life. We'll add $40,000 to that. Guys, that's only $136,000. I say only because puberty says it costs $811,000 to own a car. It doesn't. I own one. It's not costing me that much. It's not going to cost me that much over time. Let's go to the next one. A wedding. My wife and I paid for our wedding in cash. We set a budget of $12,000 because we said that's what we could afford to pay, right? And it would have been $10,000 had we not had a couple of unforeseen circumstances, right? But listen, we had, I think, 70 guests. We did our ceremony at our religious space here in the city. And all we had to do was pay for our imam to marry us. We didn't have to like pay to rent the actual space, right? And then we did our reception in my uncle's backyard in Long Island. It was very nice. And actually, the backyard wedding, because you got to pay for everything individually or whatever, it does cost a bit. We both bought I bought my suit. She bought her dress, cash, a couple $100 a piece. Now, I'm not saying all this to say that it's easy, right? It takes some ingenuity. It takes some creativity. We had to get creative with what we were doing. You know what I'm saying? We did a lot of the decorations at the wedding ourselves. I mean, my wife sat and rolled the wire that wrapped around the utensils. That took a few hours, right? But guess what? We got engaged and got married within a 6-month period, and we're able to afford a wedding with all of our closest friends and family for $10,000 to $12,000. Okay, so we can take 30,000 off the wedding. And again, we're in New York City. So I feel comfortable with saying that like this is a doable thing pretty much no matter where you live, so long as you're willing to operate within your means. Don't invite 200 people to your wedding if you ain't got it to feed 200 people. Oh, here's a little quick wedding hack. My uncle actually told us this. So Indian is our favorite cuisine. We're not Indian, but we love to eat it. It's great, easy to feed a lot of people. We reached out to this Indian restaurant, one for catering. They gave us one figure, which was pretty expensive. Then we reached out to another one who had like catering tray, like you could just buy trays of food. And we're like, hey, we want this, 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 and this tray times whatever. How much is that going to run us? It was like a third of the cost from the original caterer. So another little hack, call the restaurant, see if they just serve trays of food and just order your catering by the trays. And then we got our wait staff off of Thumbtack, which is kind of like a TaskRabbit where you can hire freelancers supporting freelancers. So we pieced it together, right? We ordered decorations off of Amazon, some of which we returned afterwards, and we were able to have an affordable wedding that was a lot of fun. And again, most importantly, it was with all the people we loved and for a quarter of the price of the average cost of a wedding. I don't have any kids, so I won't talk about it. This is what I'll say about a home. It's not always a good idea to buy a home, especially if it's going to run you that kind of money. For a lot of people, renting is going to be just fine, and the expenses are going to be different. It's probably going to be less. You're not responsible for the maintenance and such. At the end of the day, the big piece you're missing from owning a home versus renting is that you don't have the asset. You can't then sell it. That's all I'll say about the home purchase. Pets, they're optional. If you can't afford them, don't have them. I know they bring joy to our lives. I have a dog. My wife has a cat. We love them to death. But if you're looking at this going, $36,000, don't get one. They're optional. Pets didn't ask you to have them. Oh, annual vacation. Let's run some numbers on this. My wife and I just went to Toronto to celebrate our first wedding anniversary. We had a great time. We did a lot. We're the kind of vacationers where we go on vacation. We like to have, an active time. We don't like to sit on a beach and do nothing or just sit and read books. So this is what we did. We got an Airbnb 2 blocks from the CN Tower, which is the major attraction in downtown Toronto. 2 blocks. We got our Airbnb and our flights combined for under $1,000. That's huge. International flight plus our lodging under $1,000. The Airbnb was cheaper than most hotels and we had way more room. It was very nice. We had a balcony. Like it was a nice spot. We weren't staying in some hostel. Not that I'm against hostels, but that's not where we stayed. Our flights. So here's another little hack for you. The flight it was really cheap, but then all of the add-ons were extra. For us, it was a 2-hour flight. We don't have to sit beside each other. I know some of you might be hearing that like, that's crazy. You're not even gonna sit beside your wife on your 1-year anniversary? Baby, I'll see you in 2 hours. We getting on at the same time. We touching down at the same time, right? So we didn't pay extra for our seats. We didn't pay extra for carry-ons because we were just going for a long weekend. We checked one large suitcase where we could both fit all of our stuff. And it was cheaper to check one large suitcase than for both of us to pay to have a carry-on a piece. And we still got the free carry-on item. Between food, our attractions, we did Niagara Falls, we did the tour. We literally did everything we wanted. We took an Amtrak from Toronto to Niagara. We had dinner at the CN Tower, 1,000 feet in the air. We had another dinner, our anniversary dinner at another very nice restaurant. We did all of the things we wanted to do. That came out to another $1,000. So that's $2,000, right? Again, let's use the 40-year trajectory of your adult life. That comes to $80,000 for annual vacations, which is half of what puberty says it costs. And an annual vacation doesn't have to be international. Y'all can hop in a rental car and go on vacation. Don't fall in the trap of doing what you think you see everyone doing on social media. It's a highlight reel. It's not real life. That's not really the life that they're living, and certainly not all the time. And if an annual vacation is important to you, find a way to do it within your means. You can do it for half, if not less than half, of what puberty thinks it's going to cost you. Now, funerals, they're expensive. Running all the figures, we eliminate retirement because that's not a cost. It's your money that you get to use when you retire. It's an investment. It's not a cost. It does not cost you. So minus retirement, owning a new car, we're dropping that down by like 670 grand, taking that out. Wedding, we're cutting that by 3/4. We'll keep the kids in college degrees because I don't really know how much that costs, and maybe it costs that much. We'll even keep the house costing nearly $1 million. We'll eliminate the pets. We'll take the annual vacation down to $80K, and we'll keep the funeral costs. And guess what? 4.4 million turns to $1.9 million. I know, still a lot of money, still more than maybe some of us listening would expect to have in our lives. But guys, that's like less than half. And I didn't even tackle two of the bigger ones on there, like raising kids. Maybe you don't want kids. If you don't want kids, take off another million, right? Or if you don't care about owning a house, you can probably cut that number in half as well, right? This is way more feasible than we might think. And if you have the proper saving and investment strategy, totally achievable for the average earner to make $1,000,000 in their lifetime. Absolutely. It's absolutely possible. Now, if you're like, that's still too much money, why are these bare necessities costing me that much? I've got some good news for you. None of that really matters unless it matters to you. What is the American dream really? Let's go back to the guy who coined the phrase, the American dream, James Truslow Adams. In the early 20th century, Adams was the first to use this phrase, the American dream, and he said that it is a dream of a better, richer, and happier life for all of our citizens of every rank. That means the American dream is what you make it to be, what you want it to be. Identify the things that you value, right? That's how I would approach this, right? So what do I value? Listen, for me, and I'm being straight up with y'all, I don't need a house that costs me $1 million. Right now, I live in a very affordable apartment. This is great for me. I actually do own a piece of real estate right now and intend on building something that's going to cost me way less than what the average American right now is paying for a home, right? That's what I value. I don't value the new flashy car. I'm great with my Honda. It's a great car. It's fun. It's fast. It's sporty. I like it. That works for me. So the thing is, everyone can afford the American dream, a better, richer, and happier life. That just means that the work you put in will set you out to be better tomorrow than it was today, right? So let's take the list again. House, spouse, kids, car. Let's say you never thought that you'd have a car, right? That means if that's all you achieve is getting your car, you have a better and richer life than you did the day before. Let's say you figure out a way to get married. Listen, you can go down the courthouse for like $50 and get married. Okay. And if that makes you happier, please do it. Like, don't let the thought of having a big glamorous wedding, like you see all your friends posting all these crazy pictures on social media and that's what you want. Like, do what you can afford, operate within your means, tap into what really makes you happy. And I encourage you, like, and this is what I do, right? Make a list of the priorities in your life. That's how I did it. And that's what I encourage you to do. So yeah, I'm saying it. Puberty, you are full of it. The American dream does not cost $4.4 million. It's at least half of that, if not less. And ultimately, it's what every American wants for themselves. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you'll love the interview I did with Brandon Michael Hall, star of God Friended Me on CBS. We talk a lot about finance, a lot about lifestyle, a lot about being a creative person and traveling the world and enjoying life despite the price tag. So go ahead and check that out. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the page so you don't miss any Finance for Freelance content that I've got coming your way. Till next time, y'all. Peace.